Hello everyone. So in this video I want to actually compare two video or camera sliders mostly built for actually DSLRs or mirrorless cameras. The one in the front is the Kessler Stealth slider, and this one is, I believe the whole length is 40.5 inch with a usable track of about 35 inch. And this one retails for around $799, and I actually bought this exact one used on eBay for about $345. So I bought it at a huge discount. Regarding the fact that it's at a huge discount and used, it's still very expensive for a very basic slider. Now the feature of this slider is that later on, if you need to actually have a automation, they have the Second Shooter Plus package that they have for sale, brand new, for around $1,500. Also very pricey, but you have full automation in terms of camera control on this dolly. And again, usable area is about 35 inch, which is a fairly long track, and it's extremely portable compared to the Cine slider that they also sell for over $1,000 with a fully enclosed track. This one actually just have exposed track with cutouts to save weight. Okay, and the one on the back is one of the newer players in the camera slider territory. This is the newer, I think, 31-inch slider with the counterweight. This thing comes as a whole package with the counterweight. I think I bought it for around $150. I'll post the exact cost in the video because I actually can't remember how much it costs, but it actually doesn't cost that much. It's very affordable. Comes with a pretty hefty counterweight with the handle as well. And by the way, both of those sliders are actually belt driven. So there's a belt in there and there's a tooth on two sides. Basically you move those sliders around because the tooth inside drives the belt and moves it around. In terms of construction, this one is fully aluminum. This one have carbon tracks, and the rest of the parts are aluminum. They have some nice red accents. It looks pretty good, and this one is very industrial looking. So you don't have those fancy coloring, but you do have a very precise track indicator with the inches engraved on there, on both sides actually. So you have it over here and you have it over here. In terms of mounting options, you can mount both on two sides. So there are mounting holes over here of various sizes, and you have a center mount right over here for the Kessler. And for this one, for the Neewer as well, you have side mounts over here, but unfortunately it's only a 1/4 inch side mount. You don't have the option of the larger, I think that's 3/8 inch hole on the Kessler. And over here in the center, you do have the 3/8 inch mounting and a 1/4 inch mounting hole for the center mount on the Neewer slider. The Neewer slider also features adjustable height legs. So if you're on a rocky shooting surface, you can easily adjust each individual leg just like that. So it's very easy to adjust and very quick to set up. So what I'm gonna do actually mainly in this video is actually test the sliding motion for both sliders and see if the $700 slider, MSRP $700 by the way, the $700 slider is gonna have an advantage compared to the $150 Neewer slider. And before I even start this test, I can tell you that in terms of moving the sliders around, the Neewer actually feels more smooth, more controlled because of the counterweight mounted over there. Now, you can also have a counterweight for the Kessler, but that's gonna offset you another $100 just to get a counterweight to be mounted on the side of on one side of the belt system. So you have the counterweight, and then it's gonna probably move as smooth as the $150 Neewer. But next, we're gonna mount the camera, and then the ball head I'm gonna use is Sam. This is the Manfrotto, very trusty, affordable 496 RC2. Unfortunately, this one is already discontinued, so they have a newer version that replaces this, which offers similar capabilities, but this is what I find most easily configurable on both sliders, okay? So the one big plus for the Kessler is this little mounting plate, which is very quick to remove and very quick to install. And so basically you can have this mounted onto the ball head and then just screw the entire assembly in here. And on one side of the screw, it have a hex drive over here. So on the bottom, you can quickly adjust and make sure it's super tight on the slider plate. While compared to the Neewer, which have a very primitive, permanently mounted 1/4 inch screw. So in terms of stability, right off the bat, you're definitely gonna have a much more stable setup on the Kessler compared to on the Neewer. The Neewer, I'm gonna flip both over, okay. And let's take a quick look on the underside. The Kessler definitely have a much nicer forbearing design for the track, while the Neewer just uses like the very traditional, very I would even say cheaper bearing design. Okay, the bearing doesn't look to be sealed, so in terms of the longevity of the bearings, I can tell you that the Kessler is gonna last. The bearing is gonna work a lot more smoother for a lot longer time before you need to service. The Neewer, however, so the Kessler have 4 bearings, the rollers. The Neewer actually have 6 rollers. So in terms of stability, I think the Neewer actually have more stability compared to the Kessler because of the 2 additional roller, which is hidden right over here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rollers, and you have the option to actually tighten the plate on the track so it doesn't move around. While on the Kessler, you do not have that option over here directly on the plate, but you do have the option over here to actually quickly tighten this so the plate kind of fix it over there, but it still moves around slightly because of the belt design. So you cannot, it's really hard to fully lock it. So I would almost want to say it's almost impossible to actually lock this very sturdy on the track. So if you're doing a tilted shooting, as you can see, you cannot really control the thing on the track unless you have their automated system, okay? I was talking about the ability to actually lock this on the slider. Unfortunately, for the manual control, the Kessler, you are not able to get a very steady lock on the slider because even if you lock it, it moves around slightly. So in terms of that, the Neewer actually have an advantage because it firmly locks it on there for very steady shooting or very steady setup. If you're shooting at an angle, so before it starts to roll around, you can actually just lock it over there. So even at an angle, you can securely lock the Neewer where you really cannot lock on the Kessler, okay? Enough said. Let's compare. I'm gonna actually set up my A7 III onto each of the slider. I'm gonna put some simple products on the back job, and then we're just gonna do some sliding action, and you guys can compare to see which one have a edge and if the $700 slider is gonna work better than the $150 setup that I have over here on the back. So not sure if you can hear, but if you move very quickly, the Kessler is going to be louder than the Neewer, because I think of the bearing design on the Kessler, it is in direct contact with an actual aluminum piece. The aluminum is slightly louder than a carbon tube, which actually reduces vibration, but again, it have extreme strength. So in terms of durability or the ease of care, the carbon tube actually is going to last quite a lot longer, in my opinion. You could have your own opinion that you think aluminum is going to last longer, it's fine, but the carbon is going to be the new trend because it's very durable, it's very rigid, and it actually absorbs vibration. Okay, so as you can see, I'm moving both. You can clearly hear that the Kessler is louder when you're moving it around. Okay, so next, let me mount my camera, and then we're gonna switch to the actual video footage of both sliders working. And then let me know in the comment section which one you think works better. So as you can see, this is my actually final setup that I used to record the footage, which is one of the products that I'm shooting for a client. And I'm actually using the setup with the slider mounted on my Kessler, I think this is Ace M video tripod. It's not the best setup because the head, it's really mainly designed for very light cameras. With this whole setup, I think it's over 10 pounds, slightly heavy for the setup, but it works in a pinch. So basically, I am just doing a simple sliding motion from left to right for all the setups. So on the first scene, I did move with my hand once, and then the next scene I did with the hand crank, or I did with the crank. And so there are two scenes for the Neewer setup, and now I'm actually gonna take it off and then put on the Kessler crank, and we're gonna do a similar scene, and then we can compare the footages. Okay, so I just want to show you guys how I did the first scene, because I kind of changed the setup a little bit. I want you guys to see exactly what I'm doing while I'm doing the sliding actions. Okay, so it's just like that. All right, so I'm just gonna do this on the camera and take off the camera, and then I'm gonna remove the ball head, which is actually not that hard if I try to just twist it off, and it should come off. Hopefully the little attachment doesn't fall off. Yeah, it's still in here. With the Kessler, I'm actually gonna have to unscrew this and use the original 3/8 adapter. So again, it's gonna be a much more stable setup. So let's take this off really quick. And this is a good chance to show you guys how quickly it is to work with both sliders. It's really easy to install and remove, especially if you're just using the center mount. So I'm gonna remove it off the plate. One downside with Kessler tripods is the screw is really user unfriendly. It's really hard to work with for the Kessler plate. Okay, so next up is the Kessler crane, or Kessler Stealth, I'm sorry. So again, I'm gonna mount it on the center hole right over here. And really direction doesn't really matter that much, at least for my setup. So right here, it's mounted onto the quick release plate. And again, this problem like shows up right away. You always have to tighten this end for it to be kind of stable so it doesn't move around when you try to set it up on the plate. Okay, so right over here, I'm gonna tighten this, and then we're gonna do a similar setup. So to install it on here, it's really much quicker and much easier. Just use this adapter plate, screw it on here, and then simply just screw this big base onto the bottom plate. And this is really the much better way to set it up, okay? So now it's already like really secure. Losing it a little bit. And let's point the camera, mount the camera, and then we're gonna lock the ball head. And again, this is how quick it is to set up the both sliders. Those sliders are really quick to set up and work with. Now it's locked, unlock it. And supposedly this can control the kind of the force of the push. So supposedly you could get a, they say you could get a very smooth liquid fluid-like action. So that's what I'm trying to find out, because this is actually the very first time since I bought the slider to test out how it works. I never had the chance to test it out, and this is a good time to test, okay? So I'm gonna turn on the camera, just kind of pointed at the similar direction of my previous setup. Hey guys, so as you can see from the previous 4 footages, that the Neewer slider actually performed quite well with manual sliding, either moving it very fast by pushing on the plate, or using the crank handle to move the slider very slowly. But on the Kessler, I can only push it on the plate, you know, using it as a manual slider, and I can feel that the belt is actually creating friction, and so it's creating a micro jitter on the movement on the camera when I was doing the shooting. So that definitely confirms my suspicion that the Kessler, you actually need to invest another $200 to get also the flywheel and the crank handle for it to move as smooth as the $150 Neewer slider. So if you want to use the Kessler as a manual slider, expect to spend $1,000 on a new slider. If you want to just use a manual slider without any problems, just spend $150 and get the Neewer slider on the Amazon, and I promise you it's gonna work like really good compared to the Kessler at almost $800 right out of the box. Okay, so there's my conclusion. Take a look, and I think both sliders have their own strength, and if you want to use automation, the Kessler is definitely the way to go. If you are on a budget and you want to mainly use it as a manual slider, the Neewer slider is definitely a no-brainer at $150. I think it's definitely a best buy, and I'll post the link down below on where you can get both sliders. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask me in the comments section down below, and I'd be happy to answer those questions for you guys. So thank you again, and take care, guys.